Welcome to the LDHR Podcast, where ministry leaders grow together. In this special mini-series, Renewed Leadership, Reflect, Renew, Reconnect, we're creating space for leaders in leadership development and human resources, as well as anyone in ministry to pause, reflect, and realign with what matters most. Over these few episodes, you'll hear from coaches, spiritual directors, and ministry leaders who will help you notice where God has been at work in your year, explore rhythms that sustain your energy and focus, and reconnect with your purpose as a leader. Whether you're wrapping up the year or stepping into the new one, these conversations are designed to help you lead with clarity, intention, and renewed perspective so you can show up fully for yourself, your team, and your organization. We're so glad you're here. Hello, Kourtney. Welcome to the LDHR podcast. As we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and where do you live?
I'm in Orlando, Florida at Bruce headquarters, and I currently serve as a chaplain and executive coach for Family Life and spend part of my time with Family Life and part of my time serving other organizations outside of Crew. Been a really exciting season. I work with my husband, Rich, and been on staff 26 years.
Great. Well, welcome. We're really glad that you're here. So today marks our final episode of our little mini series that we're doing, Renewed Leadership, Reflect, Renew, Reconnect. And today we are renewing our leadership purpose by focusing on practical steps to realign with what matters most as a leader to prepare for this new year. So Kourtney, many leaders get busy with priorities, goals, and managing people. Why is it important to pause and reconnect to your purpose at the start of the year?
Well, I think I love saying that language transforms how things occur. And if you think about, God spoke the world into existence with words, taking time to reflect gets us beyond the grit of just everyday grinding and getting through things. But I think the pause to reflect and really getting in touch with our purpose, the words behind it, what they mean to us will not just help us to be more effective in the work that we're doing, but it'll help us to be more anchored with the Lord, with ourselves, and the people that matter most to us.
Yeah, I like that connection between language of God speaking and the world came into existence. And so there is something about language that, like you said, is really helpful and important for us. So how do you define purpose in a leadership context? And why is it different from a job description or a role?
I would say that my purpose is the impact that I want to make by my presence in a space. So whether that's like with my family, on a team, and the organization, I think a lot of times we say it's who you are, why you exist. But I think it's deeper than that. I think it really goes to our impact and our literal presence in a space, the space that we occupy.
Yeah. So what are practical ways leaders can uncover or reconnect with the why, that impact behind their work?
Well, I think there's a few areas that are passion projects for me to help leaders get clear on. I would say one is really knowing what are your 2 or 3 core values that you live everything out of, that you're known by, that your words and your actions are aligned. I would say having rich community. Who knows the last 10% of your story? Who is walking through life with you, again, professionally and personally? We like to say a lot of soul line, goal line. So like who's with you at the intersection of your soul line and goal line? And I would also say, like, under stress, we can get disconnected from our purpose and then we don't know our why. And so we're operating out of places that are really kind of, I would call it like survival needs, like look good, feel good, be in control, or be right. Taking time to really reflect on why am I here? What am I doing? What are my values? Who am I? It used to feel extravagant to me, like there's so much need in the world, and it seems crazy that we get to stop and ask these kinds of questions. But the older I get and the deeper I've been in the ministry world, the more I'm aware that the leaders that aren't taking time to do that their impact isn't as great, and it's also causing damage all around them.
Yeah. Thank you for that insight. There was a lot of stuff in there. Tell me a little bit more about that soul line, goal line. I want to hear more about what that means and how that can impact people.
Yeah, I think it's where your identity meets your performance. Obviously, as believers, we understand the soul line to be literally the soul line. But I think the language plays in spaces for those of us that are working with people that, have not a place of faith yet with the Lord. Who am I and what am I doing? And it's that there not being a gap, but there being integrity in that intersection. So who I want to be is aligned with what I'm doing and how I want to show up, that presence piece. So I'm not just a really effective worker, but I'm a deeply connected human with the Lord, with myself, with others.
Yeah, I really like that. It's changing that mindset of just kind of going and doing and going through the motions of really connecting to it's like, this is who God has created me to be and aligning that with what we're doing. I think that's a really helpful way to think about it because I know I get caught up in just the, okay, this is just what you do day in, day out, especially with kids and life and is so busy. I like that new way to think about it, the soul line, goal line.
Yeah. It's funny, I've reconnected with a high school teacher in 10th grade. We were introduced to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just coming face to face with the self-actualization one and thinking like, that is so ridiculous. Like who's going to spend time in their life, pondering, there's so much work to be done. There's people with needs and all this kind of stuff. But I think it really it was the way of Jesus. Like he did such good work, but he also pulled back and paused and reflected and was always recommitting himself to the why and inviting those around him to do the same. So I've repented of my judgment of reflection in my early days.
Yeah. So, how does reconnecting with purpose affect the way leaders show up for their teams, influence culture, and make decisions?
When we're connected to our purpose, it creates congruence in all that we're doing. And I think sometimes we think our vision and our purpose are like these kind of emotive feeling kinds of things, but they're the place that we're returning to. And we, again, like we were talking a little bit before we started about practices of reflection consistently. But I think that when a leader is connected to their purpose, they are clearer, they're calmer, they're able to make decisions in a steady way, even when the pressure is really high, which impacts the culture around them, which impacts leaders around them. And I think it brings just a groundedness to the environment and to the ministry.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that word, congruence, alignment. I think we all bring what we're feeling, either whether we're high feelers or low feelers. But when we know what that purpose is, like you said, it brings that congruence and so that they are in alignment with one another.
In 2020, I realized like we were in a really intense season. Family Life had announced that we were relocating from Little Rock to Orlando. I was in Orlando and helping with that. And then COVID hit and all kinds of, we all have our story of what 2020 was like. But I realized that I was walking around with my hands in a fist and my thumbs inside my hand. I did some deeper work, deeper reflection, got some feedback from people, and I have a coach of my own. And so I realized like that was the outward manifestation of all the things that I was holding on the inside. And so it's become for me like almost like a dashboard light. And I think we all have our own. So getting really familiar with those, it's sometimes that's how, a tightness in our chest or we can feel it in our body, but it's just really important, like you said, because we bring it with us whether we realize it or not, and it impacts those around us.
Yeah. Those physical manifestations of those things sometimes help us see, oh yeah, maybe this isn't right.
And I'm so busy, I haven't identified it yet.
Yeah. So, what role do reflection practices like journaling or mentorship play in helping leaders reconnect with their purpose?
Well, this is my like rally cry is we can't take people places we're not going ourselves. My husband's not a written down journaler, but he's a verbal processor. So whatever our methodology of processing, if we're not doing it, we can't lead the way we want to. In my perception or my belief, it's not an option. It's like it should be a mandate for ourselves. The organization can't make us do it. But if we want to be the best version of ourselves, it's also scary. Like I remember in my 20s, we were living overseas and we had some people that came from the States who were doing leadership development. And I remember saying to one of the leaders, if I pop the cork on this, it's like a champagne bottle. You never can put the cork back on. So if I choose to live like this, do this kind of work, I can stay busy and productive, or I can be reflective and productive and more productive. And so it's been it's a commitment. It's not always easy though. It's a little scary sometimes.
Yeah. I really like the way you said that. We can't take people places where we are not going. That seems so obvious when you hear that, but how many times that I know I probably do that too of like, oh yeah, this is a great place to go. And then am I doing that myself? But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we have such important work that we're doing. So sometimes it feels like I can just grind it out if I can just push a little harder. But I think, again, when we look back at the life of Christ, that's not the way he did it. He consistently pulled back to reflect and to connect with himself and with the disciples that he was closest to.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how can leaders navigate that tension between the organizational demands and staying aligned with their calling?
Yeah, I think that as I was thinking about this conversation and you kind of prepped me in advance, I was thinking like this really is the intersection of the soul line and goal line. Until Jesus comes back, there's always going to be work for us to do.
Yeah.
And for those of us that, I mean, we're all hopefully in deep community with people. So it's not just in the ministry work, but it's in our families, if you're married, if you're in a small group. Like one of the women I'm working with right now, her family in their small group, the husband is battling cancer and it's taken a really deep, dark turn really fast. And so her life is pivoting around how do she and her husband, as their leaders of this small group, support this family while they're continuing with the rest of their life. So it's like that tension's always going to be there. I think it's honoring the tension and leaning in. Like you said, I feel like you have a lot of great questions around reflection. And I think that is the superpower, the secret sauce.
Mm, yeah. Thank you. So, for anyone listening, whether they're a leader or wherever they are at, what's one practical step they could take this week to reconnect with their purpose?
I was thinking it would be great if everybody listening, if you don't have a vision or just a one sentence statement that is your North Star for right now, for who you are and what you're doing, why you're doing it, I would just invite you to get curious. Like, what's stirring inside of you when you hear that question? Like, why are you getting out of bed every day? And write that down and let it be kind of a cruddy first draft, and you can just kind of play with it and then read it to yourself every day. Like, sticky note on your bathroom mirror if you feel comfortable doing that, or stick it in your Bible or your journal or whatever. And, before the Lord, what is my purpose? What is the thrilling vision that you've given me that you want me to run after? And let that kind of unfold. We've got time to ask those kinds of questions. We need to make the time.
Yeah, I really like that. And so, for those listening doing this, how can they sustain this alignment throughout the year beyond just these first few weeks of January? We naturally tend to think of these things in January, but how can they help sustain that for the rest of the year?
Yeah, great question. I think there's like a rhythm of reflection that for me has been really resourceful. And that is a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly process. So I'm trying to live laser focused on the things that are most important, but asking myself, each day, like, what are the 3 things that are most important today? Getting those done first and having the same for the week. And then usually on Sunday, but sometimes on Monday, and it doesn't have to be a conversation like this can make us think, well, I need 4 days away to like make a plan. And then, like set the timer for 10 minutes and just look like an examine of your week. And then do the same at the end of the month and then the quarter. And then, sometimes Rich and I will go away at a 4 to 6 month mark and just take a couple days and take a deep breath. It's amazing what 24 hours can do, just off the grid, to reconnect with why and what you're doing. And then also to make little tweaks, because I think these really robust 3 to 5 year strategic plans aren't where the magic's happening anymore. It's like 90-day sprints are really powerful, especially when it comes to, our self-leadership.
That's great. Thank you so much for all your insights. I think this is really helpful. And I like some of those tangible things of like, no, just take the 10 minutes. Like, I would love, yeah, it's like, okay, I would love to take 4 days right now, but okay, that's not practical. So just take those 10 minutes. And then in another 2 weeks, take another 10 minutes to realign, to adjust, because the world is moving so rapidly around us. Like you said, how can we realign every so often? and see, are we still moving toward that vision that we have?
Yeah. And I think it's easy to tell ourselves a lie that the more responsibilities we have, the higher, we are in the organization. But I feel like it's more like not almost, it is more important, I think, because there's so many more people that are impacted by your inner world, whether you're aware of it or not. Like if you're a boat traveling through a lake, is your wake going to bring peace and maybe a little bit of fun, or is it going to flip people over on their tubes and drowning, asking for, like trying to get out of the lake? So I think those practices help us to be something that's life-giving.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all your insights, Kourtney. This is really great. And I can hear your passion coming out. I love talking about this too. But to wrap up this episode, kind of like we've done in this mini series, we want to just give our listeners right now, in real time as they're listening to this, maybe some like good questions that they can begin to reflect on and think about. So what would you have to offer for our listeners, and maybe even how they can like rethink their goals for this year?
Yeah. Well, I would say, okay, for this, I would say set a timer for 20 minutes. Use a pen and paper because it accesses a different part of your brain and it slows you down a little bit. Draw a triangle and separate it into 3 parts. And in the top part of the triangle, I would write the word vision. In the middle part of the triangle, I would write the word goals. And in the bottom of the triangle, I would write the word commitments. It's a counterintuitive way of looking at goals than I think, at least I have been taught over the years. We have a North Star, our thrilling vision that we connect with, and then the goals are how we get to the North Star. But our commitments are the things that are integrity. So, we like to say that integrity is doing what you say you're going to do it by when you're going to do it. And if you realize you can't do it, letting the appropriate people know, as soon as you're aware so that you can renegotiate what you're committed to. And in this context, a lot of times those commitments are to ourselves. And so we often will, especially people with responsibility, in their strength finder, they will die on a hill. They will do anything for anybody else, but they put themselves last on the list. I think building our integrity with ourselves, and that's by keeping our commitments to ourselves, to our teams, and, in the different environments where we operate. So I would say if you just give yourself a 20-minute timer and get really clear, what for the next 30 days, what is my vision? What are my goals? And no more than 3 goals, personally and professionally. And what are my commitments? And start to experiment with that. See what happens. Thinking about it in a different way, aligning with your personal commitments.
Yeah. Thank you. I've already drawn out my triangle and my mind's already going of what my vision for this month is and my goals and my commitments for that. Thank you so much for this kind of new way to think about goals and rhythms for the new year. I think this has been really helpful for me, and I'm sure it's very helpful for our listeners too. So thank you so much for your time today, Kourtney.
Thank you.
I hope today was insightful for you as we heard from Kourtney about how to reconnect with our purpose as we begin the new year. If you like this episode or series, please share it with a friend. We will be taking a few weeks break, but we look forward to being back with you soon. If you have any suggestions on what you would like to hear, please email us at llama@cru.org. That's LLAMA@CRU.org. We already have some really great content lined up for this year, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. See you soon.